StrayAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. Wrote a book on the subject, and you are getting the daily masterclass that is all called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, we're going to look back. We're going to look back over the last 17 years since I graduated college. Doesn't seem like it was that long of a time, but that is actually, I did the math. That is actually the number. I graduated from college, Penn State University with a degree in business in 2004. Doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's true. So I'm going to talk about what are some things that I've learned since graduating college that I will put this in the the wish I knew category. Maybe not even. Actually, no, I wouldn't put these in the wish I knew category. Just things that I know now. Things that I can't even say, damn, I wish I knew that back then, because there's no way that I could have known it given that I didn't have the experience. So the last 17 years of experience that I have accumulated have taught me these things. So any of you who is younger than me, or maybe you're in college right now, or maybe you're not even in college right now, I'm gonna share with you some things that I wish I had learned, or wish I had known sooner. Everything that I know, I wish I had learned sooner, because then we could have got it done faster, knowing that we're all on the clock. So anytime anyone asks me one of these, what would you tell your younger self, or what do you wish you knew a long time ago, those type of questions, sometimes the questions aren't actually, they're not actually relevant, because there's no way you could have known these things without having the experience. So that's really what I'm talking about here today. Some things that I wouldn't know unless I had actually lived it out. So now you'll just have a little bit of that wisdom that I'm going to share with you, and you can do with it what you wish. Let's go into it. Point number one, the topic once again, things that I wish I had known, or things that I have learned, let's just say. Things that I have learned over the last 17 years since college. Number one, most of the friends that you are around in college will not be around in the long run. 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years from the time that you are in now. Any of you who is a college student or a high school student, most of the people you're hanging with on a daily basis and talking to on a daily basis right now will be MIA, nowhere to be found 10, 15, 5, 10, 15 years from now. You will not know what became of them. You will not know how to find them. You might have to hire a private investigator to ever get track of those individuals. The same individuals you're talking to every day, you will have to do a long, hard search to find those individuals 15 years from now, guaranteed. Ask your parents about this. Ask your teachers about this. Ask anyone who's a generation or two older than you about this, and they will confirm what I just told you. Within 10 years, most of the friends that you have today will be impossible to find, and some of them will not be responsive even if you do find them. I found that that's happened. Now, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just not responding to me, but they're responding to everybody else, but I don't think so. A lot of people just get missing. They just disappear in life, and whatever it is, this is what it is. It's human nature, I guess we can say. Why it is that some people disappear, why is it that some people, you find them, and you reach out to them and say, hey, they know who you are. They clearly know who you are, because you're spending the time with them, but for whatever reason, they just don't respond. I've had this happen. There are people that I knew from, let's say, around my freshman, sophomore years of college. I found them online, maybe on like LinkedIn, or I saw them on some social media platform, or I found their maybe an email address, a phone number, a Facebook, and I'm sending a message to them. I know it's them. Looking at their face, I can see their picture, I see their background, where they went to school. I know it's that person, and for whatever reason, they're just unresponsive, or they just make themselves hard to get in touch with. Why is this? I don't know. As famed personal development speaker Jim Rohn used to say, I wouldn't sign up for that class. So trying to figure out why this is, or trying to get to the bottom of why people are how they are, don't worry about it. Just understand that this is what it is. Just accept it and know that this is going to happen. So if it hasn't happened to you yet, just keep living, and it will happen. And when it does, you will know not to invest too much time into it. Just understand that this is just how it goes. Point number two, topic here today, things that I've learned in 17 years since college. Number two, do not feel bad when you lose touch with so many people after your school years, whether it's high school, college, whatever, because most of those individuals who you lose touch with are the people that you don't talk to for a while. Let's say you have a friend in school that you're cool with and you're talking to all the time, then they disappear. You don't see them for 5 years go by, 10 years, 20 years go by, and then you do find them again. Then you do get in touch with them again, and maybe you do start striking up rebuilding that relationship or rekindling that relationship with that individual. Or maybe you just cross paths with them for a little bit and you get to learn what they've been up to in the last 15 years since they've been unavailable and unable to be found. Let me tell you something that you're going to notice about these people, something that you're going to find. And again, anyone who's been through this situation, if you have went to school and you've been out of school, let's say at least 10 years. So let's say we graduate school 18 or 22, 25. If you're in the age 25 and up, you tell me if this has happened. All right, you're going to shake your head and laugh. You're going to nod your head, not shake your head, but nod your head and laugh at what I'm about to say. Because most of the people, after 10 years, you haven't talked to them, they will be the exact same person that they were the last time you seen them. Not much has changed. Maybe there's not much. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they were a great person then and still a great person now. Maybe they were a flake back then. They would make plans with you and just disappear. And they're still a flake now. They make plans with you now and then they'll just disappear. You won't be able to find them. Maybe they were a person who was always serious and always about the hustle then. They're still going to be about the hustle now. They were about nothing back then. They're going to be about nothing now. They just got older. All right, they just got more experience being the exact same person that they were before. Most people, and this is again, it depends on who you are, depend on your perspective and the type of people that you know and the type of people that you engage with. This could be a good thing or this could be a bad thing, what I'm about to tell you, and it is this. Most people, after their early 20s, let's just say, from the early 20s on through the age 80, 90, 100, do not change. They pretty much live the next 60 to 80 years of their lives as the exact same person. Now, this is another intriguing truth that I've found about people since college, and this is something that I've talked about. I've done whole episodes on this exact topic, and if you weren't aware that you can get access to the full archive of the show at workonyourgamepodcast.com, now you know. Growth in life is optional. The only growth that happens involuntarily for any of us in life is when we are in the actual physical development stages. Your brain is growing and your body is growing. They call it puberty when our bodies are growing. Usually by the age of somewhere between 18 and 25, we're finished physically growing. Our brains have developed, our bones have calcified, and we are the size and structure that we're going to be pretty much for the rest of our lives. Now, when it comes to emotional, mental, and just the overall usefulness to society, growth, that only happens after age 21 moving forward. That only happens if someone so chooses to do so. You have to choose to go into the library, or I guess nowadays to Amazon, or to a blog or a website, or to a podcast and learn something. You have to choose to go to the gym and work out. You have to choose to do things that'll make you smarter, make you better, make you more productive, make you more useful, make you someone who other people want to be around. You have to choose to do things that add value to, first of all, to you as a person, which allows you to add value to other people. After the age of 21, it does not happen by itself. And what you're going to find, and this is something that I have found to be true, and if anyone, again, you're over the age of 30, you have found this not to be true, you can let me know. I would definitely love to speak to you. Most people don't make this choice, that voluntary choice to actually grow and get better and improve and change in any type of positive way. Maybe they'll change in a negative way, the kind of change that happens when you don't do anything to maintain the upper hand that you may have. But a lot of people don't do anything to make themselves go from whatever level to a higher level because it's optional. It's a choice. People don't usually change, and the reason why people don't change is because change requires work and it requires intentionality. You have to be intentional about changing. Again, after puberty. It sounds like a no-brainer to maybe you who's listening to the show. There's a select segment of the population who turns on the show that's about personal development. So if you're listening to this and that sounds like a foreign concept to you, well, that makes sense because, again, not everybody in the world is subject to listening to the show. Again, this is something you chose to listen to. Nobody made you listen to this, right? As far as I know, there's no school that's assigning you listen to work on your game every day. But if there is, that teacher should get in touch with me. The choice to self-improve, the choice to develop personally is a choice that many people don't make. And because it's a choice, and because it takes work, because it takes intentionality, and because it requires time, these are all parts of your 5 forms of investment, which I talked about in episode 609. This is why most people don't do it. So when you notice that many people, years after the last time you seen them, haven't really changed much and don't seem to have grown much while you have grown, and you're like, damn, why didn't this person grow? Why didn't this person do anything to get better? Why hasn't this person advanced anymore just as a person? Not even about anything tangible, but just advanced as a person. I'm explaining to you why. Because not everybody signs up for this class. Point number 3, and I mean that literally and metaphorically. Point number 3, today's topic, once again, things that I've learned in the 17 years since college. Number 3, your college grades do not really matter unless you're going to grad school and maybe your first job after school. Now, any teachers, professors, or really serious students who are listening to this right now, and you might be a little bit annoyed, maybe a little frustrated with the fact that I made this point, listen, we're just gonna have to deal with that because this is what I found to be true. Now, again, anyone who has an experience that is different, you let me know. And let me state my point again, just to make sure you don't take me out of context. Your college grades don't really matter unless you are going to grad school, and because grad school, the only resume they had to judge you from is what you just did in college. You don't have any other kind of resume. Or maybe your first job after school, because you don't have a resume. You're just coming out of school, so they want to see, all right, how'd you do with the last place you were at? The last place you were at was school, so they got to judge you off of that. Moving forward, after that, people judge you off your resume, and usually they judge you with the recency bias. The recency bias is, what's the last thing that you did? What have you done for me lately? Or what have you done, period, lately? And if the last thing you did was have a job, they're gonna look at that last job rather than look at what you did at school, because school is ancient history. Now we'll just look at the last thing you did. What'd you do in your last opportunity? Why aren't you at that job anymore? Why'd you get fired? Why'd you quit? Why aren't you moving on? They're just gonna look at where you were last, because as we all know, the clearest indicator of future performance is past performance. And usually, because as human beings, we are all inherently lazy on a certain level. Even the hardest working of us is inherently lazy. We do things that save us time, effort, and energy. So instead of looking back at the last 10 years of somebody's work history, we look at the last thing they did at work. And we're gonna judge them off that, because that gives us a clear indication of the closest thing that they are to now. The closest version of them is what they just did. Not what they did 5 years ago, but what they did 5 weeks ago. Everybody understand that? Your college, let me tell you the good side of this. All right, after I just told you that your grades really won't matter unless you're going to grad school or your first job, what will matter are the relationships and the connections that you make in school. And this is something that when I've talked about this, if I was to go back to college, I'm not going back to college, but if I was to go back to college and I could do that situation all over again, I talked about this in episode number 949, how to utilize college. Talked about in episode 277, what college major should you choose? In episode 38, the question was, do you even need college these days? The answer is yes and no, and I explained why. In episode 1578, how I would do my college years differently. So go listen to all of those episodes. And one of the main things that I talk about, if I was to do college again, I would build more relationships. I would make more friends. I would do more socializing, more partying, more meeting people. The way I met people in college was by doing everything but going to class. I didn't meet anybody by going to class. I met people by going to parties, by playing basketball, by going to any type of campus events that weren't class related, like some type of extracurricular events, by knowing people who knew people, and just going places and doing stuff. Everything other than going to class is how I met all the friends that I had in college. This is just absolute fact. So those relationships and those connections have mattered a lot more for me than anything I did in any class in college. I can't tell you what specific grade I got in any class in college except one, which was Math 110. That was a calculus class. I got an F twice. I dropped it when I was about to get an F a third time, and then I passed it my very last semester of college with a D. That's D as in Dre, all right? Not B, but D as in Dre, and that's how I was able to actually get a degree and graduate, because if I got an F, I wouldn't have been able to graduate. So that's the only class I remember the actual grade in. The rest of them, who knows? I took a walking class, as a matter of fact, one summer. Yes, walking. There was a class for walking. I got an A in that class. So shout out to Peter Hopsicker at Penn State Altoona. He gave me an A in walking class. I showed up, I walked. So, I should have got an A, I earned it. Anyway, back to my point. The right connection made in college can get you a job right out of school. Whether your GPA was amazing or no average. The right connection can get you a job much faster than your GPA can get you a job. I can only talk about my mediocre, and the only reason I ever even bring up my GPA from college whenever I'm talking about college is because I'm giving you the truth about the lack of, I didn't really seriously apply myself as a student in school. And I don't say it to brag, I say it just to keep it real. That's really what it was. The best thing that I got from college and the experience are the experiences that I had and the friends that I made who I'm still in touch with. That was the most valuable thing that I got. And the fact that I played ball, my basketball experience, that's part of the experience. The further away you get from an achievement, everyone, the less that achievement matters. Which is why it's so important. And the reason why my whole business is built around personal and professional development is because no matter how great that thing was you achieved X number of years ago, every year it's another year away. You're a year further away from that achievement, but less that achievement matters, and it needs to be replaced with a new achievement. Because you don't want to be the person in 2025 still talking about what you did in 2015, because anyone, even if they don't consciously think about it, they're like, oh, wait, well, the greatest thing you did happened 10 years ago. What have you done in the last 10 years? What have you achieved up to this point? Maybe some people will come out and just ask you directly. Many people may ask you kind of indirectly, and a lot of people are not going to say anything. They're just going to think it about you, like this girl's a damn loser. The best thing they did, or the number one thing they talk about happened 10 years ago. They obviously must have not doing a damn thing since. You want to make sure you're continuing to grow, continuing to develop. So that's why, as you look at whatever you're doing as a student right now, like, do your thing now, because that is the most recent thing you've done. That's the current thing that you're doing. So do great at it if you can. Do great at it. But then when you've moved on from that, the less that's going to matter, and the most recent thing is always going to matter. This is just how human beings are. We call it the primacy effect and the recency effect. Primacy effect is we remember the first thing, and recency is we remember the last thing. Everything in the middle, some people will remember it, but many of it ends up just fading out. You ever see someone's tombstone? They say born in 1950, died in 2020, and there's just a dash. It says 1950-2020. That's that is a real life representation of the primacy and the recency effect. The first thing when they were born, and the last thing when they died, and everything they did in between just becomes a dash. All right, it's the same thing with your career. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is things that I've learned in the 17 years since college. Number 4, your teachers and professors are usually not geniuses. Now, again, teachers and professors who are listening to this right now, I know there are many of you who listen to this show. All right, this is not a diss of you. It's just the truth about you. So any students out there, and all of you were students at one point, so you can't get mad. Am I right or am I right? If I'm wrong, you can let me know. Again, just because you may happen to fall into the category doesn't mean that the truth is not the truth. Were your teachers and professors, when you went to school, were they geniuses? Did you find out that everything they told you was actually correct? No. You usually realize in a very short period of time that something that Mr. Jones or Miss Johnson was teaching you was bullshit, because they are human just like you are. Even though they're a teacher and they have authority, that does not mean everything that they say is correct. They know more than you. Any of you who are current students right now, any of you who are teachers right now, hopefully you know more than your students, and they shouldn't be in your class if they know more than you. So they have authority because they have more information and more knowledge than you, and maybe even more experience than you. But one thing that I know, no teacher that I ever had from kindergarten through college, and what is that? It's damn near 17 years in itself. I started kindergarten about age 5, college 22, 17 years there. Boom. None of them, not one of them, at least the ones who are still alive, could tell me shit about what I do today. And I say that not as a knock against them, but just to put in perspective that you know the thing that you do. And this is something that I talked about in episode. I'm going to pull up that episode where I said that, and I'm just trying to remember what I titled it. What you do is who you are. That was episode number, let me find it. Episode number 956. What you do is who you are. If you teach for a living, then you know teaching. If you do business for a living, you know business. If you play football for a living, you know football. If you're an influencer, you know influencing. What you do is who you are. So if you are teaching something, but you're not actually doing the something that you're teaching, to me, you are much more qualified to explain teaching than you are to explain that subject, because subject knowledge does not come from reading a manual or taking a course or consuming X number of books or podcasts or blog posts. Subject matter knowledge comes from being 10 toes deep in the trenches, actually doing the thing, whatever the thing happens to be. And this applies to students, this applies to teachers, this applies to all human beings. If you are not out there actually doing it, you do not know it. Even if You have a certification. Even if you have a job teaching it to other people, you're teaching it to people who don't know shit, so which gives you authority over them, but you don't have authority over the people who are actually doing it. You understand what I'm saying? For example, when I was in college, my last 2 years of college, most of the classes that I took were business-related courses, so I can make sure I got all the required courses taken to get my degree. And I'm taking all these business classes. I remember one specific class, we'll just use as an example. It was like a business law class. Now, I believe the professor may have been a business lawyer. I think he was in some form of business lawyer, but I'm not quite sure. But I know there were some people teaching business law in my college who were not actually attorneys. So who knows more about business law? The business law professor. So let's just put these in order. Actually, here's a better question. Let's put in order the people who know the most to the people who know the least. So we got a person who actually practices business law, and then we got a business law professor, and then we have us students who are taking a business law class. And I just basically gave you the answer. That's the order from most to least of who knows anything. So the business lawyer who's actually out there practicing law and working with clients and preparing briefs and doing whatever lawyers do every day. I heard it's boring. Doing that every day, they know it the most. They have the most knowledge. The second amount of knowledge is the professor who is out there teaching it. Maybe they have a law degree, maybe they have been a lawyer, but some of their time is being divided and split into teaching this class. So they're not as entrenched as the person who's only doing the actual legal profession full time, because that teacher has to give some of their time to teaching the class, right? Logically speaking. And then you got the student who doesn't know a damn thing. So all they're doing is coming to class and reading books. So they don't know shit. So yes, a professor and the teacher does have authority over the student, but they don't have authority over the person who's out there actually in the trenches doing the thing. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And I'm telling you that to explain to you this. What your teachers and professors tell you does matter, and you should listen, and you should follow it at least to some degree, and you should at least pretend to follow it even if you have no respect for their knowledge, because they control whether or not you pass that class. So make sure you pass the class as part of the hustle. As part of the hustle that you do have to pass classes, especially those of you who are athletes. But understand that they are not geniuses. All right, their word is not written in scripture. So you can still, at the same time, while you hustle and make sure you pass that class, know that there are some things that your professors may tell you that you can still take with a grain of salt, just because. All that being said, respect the hustle. I want to make sure I say that one more time so you don't misconstrue my message. You are in control of where you end up. Your professors and teachers do not control your destiny. They control whether you pass or not. So make sure, again, you respect the game, but whether or not, where you end up in life, rather, is based on you and your actions and your use of the knowledge that you acquire and your use of the experiences that you accumulate over the years. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is things that I learned in the 17 years since college. And again, it doesn't feel like it's that long. It's not even about a wish I knew thing. These are just things that I had to go through to actually know. So this is not something that I could have known back then, but I know it now. Point number one, most of the friends you're around in college will not be around in the long run. Within 10 years, many of your current friends will be impossible to find and don't want to be found. Why this is, as Jim Rohn said, I wouldn't sign up for that class. Just what it is. Point number two, don't feel bad that you'll lose touch with so many people after school, because most of them aren't going to change. They're going to be the exact same person in 15 years that they are right now. Why? Because people just don't change. Point number three, your college grades don't really matter unless you're going to grad school and maybe your first job after school. Why is this? It's the recency effect. The most recent thing that you did is what matters most to people who are looking at you, not the thing that you did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the thing you did 5 weeks or 5 minutes ago. Number three, your college grades, I just said that. Number four, your teachers and professors are usually not geniuses. They do have authority over you because they know more than you. You don't know a damn thing because you're a student. You haven't done anything. But no teacher that I ever had could tell me shit about what I do today. And I'm not saying that as a knock against them, but because I'm 10 toes deep doing those things and they're in class teaching them. And there's a big difference between teaching something and actually doing it. If you're doing it and you can teach it, that's when you're at genius level. But if you're just teaching it, but you haven't actually done it, then you can teach some students, but you can't teach somebody who's in the trenches. That is what I've seen. That's what I know. Work on your game. Dre all day.